Welcome to X Confessions Unlocked, where lies, betrayal, and truth collide. Kindly subscribe so you don't miss any of this. We share new stories daily. Stick around and unlock the drama. Now, let's get into today's story. I accidentally overheard my ex-wife drunkenly bragging to her friends that she'd been cheating on me for years, and they all laughed like it was some hilarious joke. What happened next changed everything. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. That's the part that still gets me, how unplanned it all was. I was just coming home early from a long week, arms full of groceries, hoping to surprise Julie with her favorite Thai noodles and maybe finally have a normal Friday night together. The kind we hadn't had in months. Hell, maybe years if I'm being honest. The garage door was acting up again, so I parked on the street and came in through the front. Our living room was dim, just the soft glow from the standing lamp by the bookshelf. I heard laughter first, the loud, wine-fueled kind that always made me feel like an outsider, even when I was standing right there. I paused in the foyer, balancing the grocery bags on my hip. I recognized her voice immediately. Julie, and her friends, Lisa, the loud one who never liked me, and Andrea, the quieter one with the expensive shoes and judgy stares. She says I'm cold, Julie was saying, her words slurring just slightly at the edges. But the truth is, Samson is just too stupid to realize I've been cheating for years. The room exploded with laughter. That ugly, high-pitched kind that bounces off walls and makes your chest feel tight. I didn't breathe. I couldn't. Lisa shouted, "No way." Years. Julie kept laughing. I'm serious. He's just so trusting. I come home late and say I was at a meeting, and he'd be like, "Did it go well?" I mean, come on. Andrea chimed in. That's not stupid. That's just, I don't know, sweet. Julie scoffed. It's pathetic. I stood there, frozen, holding a paper bag that had started to tear from the bottom. A bottle of soy sauce clinked loudly against the tile as it slipped out and shattered. There was a beat of silence in the living room. Then footsteps. Julie rounded the corner and stopped when she saw me. Her eyes widened, not in shock, but in irritation, like I had interrupted her manicure. "Oh," she said flatly, "you're home." I looked at her, really looked at her. Her dark hair was a mess in a sexy, carefree way she usually reserved for nights out with the girls. She was barefoot, holding a glass of red wine in one hand and a phone in the other. Her expression didn't shift much, except for the slightest twitch in her jaw. "I forgot my meeting got canceled," I said quietly. "I thought we could have dinner." Her friends appeared behind her, suddenly very interested in their wine and phones. No one said a word. Julie shrugged. "Guess not." That was it. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not like a break, loud and dramatic. More like ice melting. Quiet. Subtle. But irreversible. I cleaned up the soy sauce while they retreated back into the living room, pretending like nothing had happened. I heard the TV click on, and a sitcom laugh track filled the silence I left behind. I went to the kitchen, put the groceries away, slowly, mechanically, while my thoughts whirred and my chest felt numb. That night, we didn't talk. She went to bed before me. I sat out on the back patio with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, staring at the tree line. Our dog, Baxter, sat beside me, head on my foot like he knew something was wrong. And the worst part? I wasn't even angry. Not yet. Just hollow. Just dumb. Over the next few days, things settled back into what passed as normal. Except now, everything was tinted, like watching a movie where you already know the twist. Julie acted the same, like nothing had changed. She kissed my cheek in the morning, reminded me to pick up paper towels, posted pictures of us smiling at brunch. But now I noticed everything. The text she smiled at and locked her phone after. The way she answered questions with a question. How often she suddenly had late meetings or a girls' night she forgot to mention. I started replaying everything in my head. The cancel plans. The mysterious expenses on our shared account. The way she used to avoid my eyes sometimes when I told her I loved her. Like it embarrassed her. I kept quiet. Not because I was afraid of confrontation, though I guess in a way I was, but because I wanted to understand. Not just what she had done, but why I hadn't seen it. Why I hadn't even suspected. Was I really that blind? I started paying closer attention. When she left for yoga, I checked her location. She was at a Marriott downtown. I drove by, parked a few blocks away, and waited. 20 minutes later, she walked out with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, tan, expensive watch. They were laughing. She touched his chest lightly when she spoke. The same way she used to touch mine. I didn't confront her that night either. Instead, I came home, made dinner, and waited for her to get back. When she did, she said, "Class was brutal," and I nodded like I believed her. Maybe I was testing myself, seeing how long I could keep up the act. seeing how much it would take for me to stop loving her. The answer, it turned out, was more than I thought. Because despite everything, despite the cheating, the lies, the laughter at my expense, some stubborn part of me still hoped she'd turn around and say, "I'm sorry. I messed up. I want to fix this." She didn't. A week after I overheard her, she brought home a bottle of wine and a movie to watch. She curled up beside me on the couch like nothing was wrong. I watched her more than the movie. Her eyes, her mouth, the way she held her glass. She smelled like sandalwood and something faintly floral. Halfway through the film, she leaned her head on my shoulder. "I've missed this," she said. I didn't answer. She tilted her head to look at me. "You okay?" I met her eyes. "Do you love me, Julie?" Her expression flickered, just for a second, then settled into something careful. "Of course I do. Are you sleeping with someone else?" The silence was immediate and heavy. She sat up straighter. "What kind of question is that?" "A real one." She scoffed. "No. Jesus, Samson." I nodded. "Okay." We didn't finish the movie. That night, I stared at the ceiling and realized I was already halfway out the door in my mind. I just hadn't packed my bag yet. Over the next 2 weeks, I made a plan. Quietly, I started separating our finances, opened a new checking account, transferred small amounts at a time, gathered passwords, documents, lease agreements. I made a copy of everything. I talked to a lawyer. He said I had options. One night, I came home and found her in the kitchen, humming to herself while she chopped vegetables. She smiled when she saw me. "Hey, babe," she said. "You're early." I looked around our kitchen. The mismatched mugs. The framed photo of us from our second anniversary. The apron she never used hanging on the pantry door. "I think we should talk," I said. Her hands froze on the cutting board. "About what?" I took a breath. "About us." She put the knife down carefully, wiped her hands, and turned to face me. "Okay, what's going on?" "I know about him," I said. "I know about all of them, probably. And I think you know I know." She didn't deny it this time. She didn't cry, didn't beg, didn't even really flinch. She just said, "So what now?" I nodded slowly. "Now, I think I figure out who I am without you." She laughed once, bitter. "That's dramatic." "Maybe," I said, "but it's honest." She looked at me then, really looked, and for the first time in a long time, I think she saw me. Not the doormat, not the clueless husband, but the man who finally stopped pretending. She didn't say anything else. She just turned back to the cutting board and resumed chopping carrots. That night, I packed a bag and took Baxter. We stayed at my friend Jordan's place. He didn't ask many questions. Just handed me a beer and turned on the game. That was 2 months ago, and that's where it all really began. Not with the cheating, not with the laughter, but with the quiet moment I finally chose myself. The first night away from Julie felt more surreal than anything else. Jordan gave me his spare bedroom, a tiny space with a mattress on the floor and a single window facing an alley. But somehow, it was the most peace I'd felt in months. Baxter curled up at the foot of the mattress, his tail thudding against the floor like he knew we were starting over. I didn't sleep much. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the creaks of Jordan's old pipes, wondering if Julie even noticed we were gone. I imagined her walking past the bedroom door, calling my name like she couldn't quite believe I'd actually left. I imagined her checking her phone and seeing no messages from me. I imagined her shrugging and pouring another glass of wine. But none of that mattered. I had left. And now, I had to figure out what came next. The next morning, I called in sick. I didn't want to explain anything to my boss yet. I wasn't ready to answer questions or fake normalcy. Instead, I walked to a diner near Jordan's apartment, ordered black coffee and dry toast, and just sat. For a long time, I watched the people coming in and out, laughing, reading newspapers, scrolling their phones. It hit me how long it had been since I'd just been still. Around noon, Jordan texted, "Let me know if you need anything. Beer? Baseball? A dog that sheds less." He was trying to keep it light, but I appreciated it. Jordan's been my friend since college. We played intramural soccer together, both had terrible facial hair back then, and somehow stuck by each other through jobs, girlfriends, weddings, and now apparently divorces. I finally responded, "Beer, and maybe answers." He texted back a thumbs-up emoji. We didn't need many words between us. That afternoon, I met with the lawyer again. His name was Eric, early 40s, sharp suit, sharp eyes. The kind of guy who didn't waste time on small talk. He reviewed the financial documents I'd collected, nodded approvingly, and started outlining my options. "You've got a good case, Samson," he said, "especially if you're not trying to take her to the cleaners. Judges like it when people keep it civil." "I'm not trying to ruin her," I said. "I just want out. Clean. Fair. Done." He nodded again. "Smart. We'll push for that." By the end of the meeting, I'd signed the first set of papers. Just seeing my name at the bottom, Samson J. Warren, petitioner, made it feel real in a way nothing else had. I wasn't her husband anymore. Not legally, not emotionally. Just a guy with a pen, finally taking back his name. Julie didn't respond when she was served the next day. That surprised me, honestly. I expected at least one dramatic call. One angry voicemail or a vague, manipulative text like, "Wow, I guess this is who you are now." But nothing. Radio silence. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt hollow. Maybe it was because I didn't want to fight. I wanted her to care, even if it was messy, even if it meant yelling. At least that would have meant something. Jordan said, "She probably doesn't want to give you the satisfaction. Let her be. The quiet ones always get hit with the reality later." He was probably right. I kept busy. Work was steady, and I threw myself into it more than I had in years. I stayed late at the office, helped out with projects that weren't even mine, fixed the damn coffee machine when no one else could figure it out. I didn't want idle time. Idle time meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. But you can't outrun your memories forever. Late one night, I found myself scrolling through my old photos. Not just the obvious ones, not the posed Instagram smiles or anniversary dinners. I mean the small, quiet photos. Julie curled up on the couch in sweats, reading a book. Julie blowing bubbles with our niece at a picnic. Julie asleep in the passenger seat on a road trip, mouth slightly open, her hand resting on mine. I stared at those images for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done since I left. I let myself cry. Not the loud, dramatic sobs you see in movies. Just a slow, steady leak. Silent. Cleansing. I missed her. Or maybe I missed who I thought she was. The version of her that smiled at me like I was the only person in the room. The one who used to leave little sticky notes on my bathroom mirror before big meetings. "You've got this. You're my rock. I love you, dummy." I don't know when that woman disappeared. Maybe she never existed. Maybe she did, and I just didn't notice when she stopped being real. About 3 weeks after I left, I got a text from her. Just one line. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a solid 10 minutes before responding. "About what?" She replied, "Us." I said, "There is no us." No reply after that. Another week passed. Then one day, I came home to Jordan's apartment and found a small envelope on the doormat. My name written in her handwriting, loopy, dramatic cursive. I took it inside, sat down at the kitchen counter, and opened it. It wasn't long. Just 2 paragraphs. "Samson, I'm not good at this. I never was. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want to say I'm sorry. Not because I got caught. You didn't catch me. I laughed about it because I didn't think you'd ever see me clearly. But I think maybe you did all along. Maybe that's worse. I hurt you. I know that. I hate that. I wish I knew how to explain why I did what I did, but I don't. Maybe I was scared. Maybe I'm just selfish. Probably both. I'm sorry you had to hear it that way. I'm sorry I made you feel like a fool. You weren't. You aren't. You're better than me in every way that matters." No signature. Just her handwriting, familiar and strange all at once. I read it twice, then folded it back up and set it on the counter. Jordan came home a few hours later, saw me staring off into space, and asked, "You all right?" "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." Because here's the thing. The letter didn't fix anything. It didn't undo the betrayal. It didn't change the fact that I'd been lied to, mocked, and taken for granted. But it made something clear. She knew. She knew she broke something in me that wouldn't be patched with apologies or nostalgia. And that gave me clarity. I didn't respond to the letter. Not because I wanted to be cold, but because I didn't need anything from her anymore. Not closure. Not validation. Nothing. A few days later, Jordan and I went out for drinks. It was a Friday night, the bar was packed, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. Real, chest-shaking, drink-snorting laughter. It wasn't about anything profound. Just a story he told about a coworker accidentally microwaving a fork and setting off the office fire alarm. But it felt good, like stretching after being crammed too long. Later that night, I opened a blank note on my phone and wrote this. "I don't want to be bitter. I want to be better." That's what I kept repeating to myself in the weeks that followed. When I thought about her, when I saw couples holding hands on the train, when I had to cancel our shared Netflix account and realized I didn't remember the password because she always handled that stuff. I don't want to be bitter. I want to be better. So I did things I hadn't done in years. I started running again. Not far. My knees aren't what they used to be, but enough to feel wind in my lungs. I bought a sketchbook. I used to draw all the time in college. Nothing fancy, just little scenes. Coffee mugs. Fire escapes. Faces on the train. It felt good to make something again. I volunteered once a week at a shelter that needed help walking dogs. Baxter came with me. We made a good team. and slowly, I started feeling like me again. Not her husband. Not the guy who got cheated on. Just Samson. And that was enough. One Saturday morning, I was at the farmer's market picking up peaches when I saw her. Julie. She was across the aisle, wearing sunglasses and holding a coffee. She didn't see me. She was with someone, not the guy from the hotel. A different man. Younger. Smiling down at her like she hung the stars. For a second, I felt something cold twist in my chest. But then it passed. I turned away, paid for my fruit, and walked to my car. I didn't look back. That night, I grilled those peaches with a little honey and cinnamon. Ate them on the patio with Baxter at my feet, the sky turning orange above us. And I felt full, not just from the food, from a stillness, from the quiet victory of healing without needing revenge. Because the truth is, the best thing I ever did wasn't catching her. It wasn't confronting her. It wasn't even leaving her. It was choosing, finally, to love myself more than I loved the version of her I made up in my head. The weeks after that farmer's market sighting passed quietly. Life wasn't perfect, nothing ever is, but for the first time in years, it felt stable. I was waking up without that knot in my chest. Baxter and I had a rhythm now. Morning walks, late-night shows, lazy Sundays spent in pajamas. Jordan stayed in touch, always ready with an easy distraction or just a, "Hey, you good?" text. One evening, as I was scrolling through my phone, I got a message from Julie. Just a text, no fanfare. "Samson, can we talk?" For real this time. I stared at it. For a long time. Part of me wanted to delete it immediately, to pretend it never came. But another part, the quieter, more honest part, wanted to hear what she had to say. So I responded. "Okay. When?" She replied. "Tomorrow? Coffee. My treat." I thought about it all night. What would I say? Would I look at her and still see the woman who betrayed me? Or would I try to find the girl I fell in love with? Could I even do that anymore? The next afternoon, we met at a small cafe, one I hadn't been to since the divorce papers were signed. It was quiet, with chipped wooden tables and the smell of fresh espresso. Julie was already there when I walked in. She looked different, less polished, more tired maybe, but also vulnerable. We sat opposite each other, the space between us filled with the low hum of conversations and the clinking of cups. "I'm glad you came," she said, voice softer than I expected. "Me too," I said. And that was true. I want to know why she wanted to talk, really talk, not just patch things over. For a while, we circled around safe topics. Work, Baxter, the weather. Then she took a deep breath. "Look, Samson, I owe you an explanation. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want to be honest." I nodded. The words I wanted to say got caught somewhere between my throat and my heart. She looked down at her cup. I wasn't happy. Not really. I was scared. Scared of facing myself, of facing us. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "Why not just talk to me?" She looked up, eyes glossy. "Because I thought it would be easier to just disappear into someone else's life. Because I was selfish and cowardly. I thought maybe if I didn't have to face the truth, I wouldn't have to feel the guilt." I felt a wave of sadness, not just for me, but for her. "That's a lot to carry alone." She nodded. "Yeah, it is." We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of everything between us. "I'm sorry I made you feel like a fool," she said again. "And for laughing about it with my friends. That was cruel." I swallowed hard. "I never wanted to be your enemy." "You're not," she said quickly. I want you to know the truth. That you deserve better." And maybe that was the hardest part. Hearing her admit it. Not as a fight or a blame game, but just raw, painful truth. When I left the cafe, I didn't feel lighter or heavier. I just felt free. The next few days were quieter than usual. I didn't text her. I didn't think about her much. I focused on the small things. Baxter's goofy antics, Jordan's ridiculous jokes, the way the sun hit my apartment in the morning. But then, something unexpected happened. One evening, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. When I answered, a woman's voice was on the other end. "Hi, is this Samson Warren?" "Yes." "Who's this?" "My name's Lisa. I was with Julie. I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything." I frowned. "Sorry? What do you mean?" She hesitated. "Julie told me about what happened between you two. I was part of it. I was with her when she was cheating." My heart clenched. "I know it's not my place," she said quickly. "But I wanted you to know she's been struggling a lot. Not just with you, with herself. And I think she wants to change." I didn't know what to say. I wasn't sure if hearing this was relief or just another cut. "Thanks for telling me," I said finally. "I appreciate it." After hanging up, I sat back in my chair, trying to process it all. This wasn't about forgiveness or revenge anymore. It was about understanding. Understanding how messy people are, how imperfect love can be. I I thought about Julie's words at the cafe and Lisa's call, and I realized something important. People don't always hurt you because they want to. Sometimes they hurt you because they're broken too. That didn't excuse what happened. It just made it human. I began writing again. Not sketches this time. Words. Stories, thoughts, memories. Sometimes angry, sometimes sad, but mostly honest. One story I wrote was about a man who loved too hard and lost himself in the process. About betrayal and healing and finding peace not in winning, but in letting go. I shared a few pieces with Jordan. He told me they were good. Better than good. "You're getting your voice back," he said one night, clapping me on the shoulder. And I was. Bit by bit. Months passed, and the divorce finalized. We split what needed to be split, including the mess of shared accounts and mutual friends. Julie moved away. I heard she started therapy, maybe even went back to school. I hoped she found the peace she was chasing. As for me, I kept running, kept writing, kept rebuilding. One afternoon, I got an email from a publisher interested in the stories I've been working on. It wasn't a bestseller deal or anything glamorous, but it was a start, and that felt like something real. Something I earned for myself. I'm not the same man I was before. The man who walked out that door, heartbroken and humiliated. I'm someone who's learned to stand alone. Someone who's learned that peace comes not from making others pay, but from forgiving myself first. Because in the end, that's what matters. After the cafe meeting with Julie and the call from Lisa, I thought things would settle into some kind of quiet closure. But life has this way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. A few weeks later, I was at a friend's small birthday gathering, a casual thing at a local bar. Jordan was there, as always, cracking jokes and trying to make me laugh. The night was chilly but clear, and the warmth of the dimly lit room felt like a little bubble away from the chaos of everything else. Somewhere between the second and third beer, I spotted Julie. She wasn't looking for me. I'm sure of that. She was tucked away near the back with a group of people I didn't recognize. Her laughter, the one that had haunted me before, was quieter this time. More genuine, less cruel. I caught Jordan's eye, and he gave a small nod like, "Ready for this?" I wasn't. But sometimes you just have to face what comes. I walked over. Julie looked up, startled, then smiled softly. "Samson," she said. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. The group around her started to look curious, but I ignored them. This wasn't a scene for an audience. "Can we talk?" I asked. She nodded. We slipped outside into the cool night air. The street was quiet, just the occasional hum of a passing car. "I'm glad you came," she said, her breath visible in the cold. "Me too," I said honestly. We stood there, both hesitant at first, like we were afraid if we spoke too soon the moment would shatter. "Look, I want to say something," she began. "I've been seeing a therapist for months now. It's helped more than I thought it would. I'm starting to understand a lot about why I did what I did." I listened, really listened, as she spoke. There was no excuse in her words, no justification, just a raw, painful honesty. "I was running from myself," she said quietly, "and in the process, I ran away from us. I hurt you. I'm so sorry, Samson." For the first time, I felt the anger inside me soften. Not disappear, that would be impossible, but shift into something less heavy. "I'm glad you're getting help," I said. "That's important." She looked relieved, like she'd been carrying a weight for too long and was finally able to put down. We talked for a while longer, about the past, about mistakes, about what healing might look like. It wasn't closure. It wasn't a reunion or a fresh start. It was just two people acknowledging the damage and the hope for something better. When I walked back inside, Jordan was waiting with a grin. "Well," he asked. "Better than I expected," I said. That night, I went home feeling lighter than I had in months. The days turned into weeks, and slowly, I started to rebuild more than just my writing and routines. I began to look at myself, really look beyond the betrayal and hurt. I signed up for a photography class, something I'd always wanted to try, but never had the courage to pursue. The first session was awkward, surrounded by people who seemed to know what they were doing while I fumbled with my camera settings. But I liked it. I liked how the lens forced me to see the world differently, to find beauty in the mundane. One afternoon, I caught a shot of Baxter mid-leap chasing a frisbee at the park. The joy frozen in his eyes made me smile for real. Jordan teased me about becoming an artsy guy, but I didn't mind. It was nice to find something that wasn't tied to pain or the past. One morning, as I was packing for a weekend trip to the coast, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Julie. "Hey, I'm sorry if this is weird. I just want to say I hope you're doing well." I stared at the message, unsure if I should reply. After a few minutes, I typed back, "Thanks. I hope you are too." That was it. No long conversations. No reopening old wounds. Just two people moving forward, separately, but with a mutual wish for peace. The weekend trip was exactly what I needed. The ocean air, the sound of waves crashing, the endless horizon. It reminded me that life is bigger than any one moment of pain or betrayal. I walked the beach, thinking about how much had changed in the past year. I thought about the man I was back then, broken, angry, lost. And I thought about the man I was becoming, calmer, clearer, stronger. One evening on the coast, I sat outside the small cabin where I was staying, a book in my lap but my mind wandering. I pulled out my journal and started writing. Not about Julie, or the cheating, or the laughter I overheard that night, but about me. About how I was learning to trust myself again. About how I was finding happiness in the little things. About how sometimes the greatest revenge isn't a grand gesture or a crushing comeback, but simply living well. As I wrote, the sky darkened and the stars came out one by one. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. That trip marked a turning point. When I returned, I carried that sense of calm with me. I stopped checking Julie's social media or wondering what she was doing. I focused on my life, my friendships, my passions, my future. And slowly but surely, the pain faded into the background. One afternoon, Jordan and I sat at our favorite diner, drinking coffee and talking about nothing and everything. "You look different," he said with a smile. "I feel different," I replied. He nodded knowingly. "You deserve that." I smiled back. "Yeah, I think I do. And that's where I am now. Not bitter, not broken, just free. Free from the past. Free to be me." And that's more than I ever thought possible when I first overheard those cruel words in the dark. Because sometimes the hardest things teach you the most important lessons. And sometimes the best kind of healing comes from within. It's been almost a year since that night. I overheard Julie laughing with her friends, boasting about how I was too stupid to realize she'd been cheating for years. Funny how some moments stick with you, like a stone in your shoe, annoying at first, but eventually you learn to walk with it. At first, that stone felt like a wound that would never heal. I replayed it in my head endlessly, the sound of her laughter cutting sharper than anything else. But over time, I realized that stone didn't have to weigh me down. It could remind me, not of her cruelty, but of my strength. Life since then has been a slow unfolding, like a book you didn't want to read but couldn't put down. I won't lie, some days were tougher than others. There were moments when loneliness crept in, and I'd catch myself wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. But those days grew fewer. I got back into writing and photography, and those became my anchors. I'm not famous or published widely yet, but I'm proud of the work I'm doing. It feels honest, and that's enough. I rebuilt friendships, some old, some new. Jordan, of course, has been a rock, the kind of friend who listens without judgment and makes you laugh when the world feels heavy. One unexpected twist, I started dating again. Not out of some desperate need to replace what was lost, but because I realized I'm still capable of love and connection. The woman I'm seeing now isn't Julie. She's someone who's kind, grounded, and sees me, all of me, not just the version broken by betrayal. We take things slow. No rush, no pressure. Just two people figuring it out together. Julie? We've mostly stayed out of each other's way. I heard through the grapevine that she's still in therapy and trying to build a new life. I'm glad, really glad. I don't harbor anger or bitterness anymore. Those feelings only hurt me in the end. There's a quiet satisfaction in knowing I didn't need to win or prove anything to anyone. No dramatic confrontations. No revenge plots. Just me, standing on my own feet, living my life. Sometimes, when I think back to that moment overhearing Julie's laughter, I don't feel shame or hurt. I feel something else, gratitude. Gratitude that I found my way through the dark. That I learned to trust myself again. That I realized my worth wasn't tied to anyone else's actions or words. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't about hurting others. It's about healing yourself, about reclaiming your peace, about building a life so full and authentic that the past no longer has power over you. So here I am, Samson, not the fool she thought I was, but a man who learned how to rise, who learned how to live, who's finally free. Thanks for reading, Reddit. If you're going through something similar, betrayal, heartbreak, the slow grind of healing, know this. It gets better. Not overnight, not without pain, but it does. And you're not alone. Keep moving forward. Keep trusting yourself. And eventually, you'll find your peace too.